So this is so much a true story about Sasquatch. The first few years we moved to Valemount. She was dead set about finding this Mica Mountain Sasquatch, a whole article about it. We had 2 or 3 days with my baby in my back, camping, trying to find up Mica Mountain, trying to find the Sasquatch. And so it is true.
So I'll just speak from here.
Yeah, right.
So I owned the office supplies store in town for 14 years or so, and Alka would come in with these projects, I mean, there was a Christmas book, which is probably still around, like the songbook, and all these other books she did for the kids. Like, it was so fascinating. She'd be, so I sold the store in 2019, and even then she was bringing stuff related to trees and
Photocopies.
Yeah, photocopies. Like,
And laminating.
She helped pay off the lease on.
Yeah.
But she was very, very generous and never asked how much it was going to cost. But it was also fun for Monique and me, seeing the projects. Okay, this needs to be done this way. She was very particular about what she wanted. And she missed having access to the school photocopier that we were lucky. But it was really nice to see the project she was working on. Like, it was like we go through it and see how much fun it was. And anyways, I felt she was always learning and like teaching and learning all at the same time. I really admire that about her. I want to go back to like the first Boxing Day party I attended was in 2001, and that's when we just moved to Valemount. And it was in the old trailer, and I was just amazed by the hospitality and that it was a small trailer, and there was over 70 people. Like, that's driven home. It's not about the size of the house. It's just about the heart, and Alka had it. I hold that in my mind. You don't have to have a perfect dinner or perfect space. It's just about welcoming people, like she always did that. So
I'll just stand back here. I don't like talking in front of
Yeah.
people. So actually, Rashmi gave me the opportune sort of opportunity, if you will, to talk about how particular Elka was and how she likes things certain ways. She knew what she wanted. In the old trailer, we were helping Claude and Elka move some stuff from the trailer to the house. Claude spent thousands of hours, and I'm sure Elka was involved too, in building this house, and of course it's a beautiful place. We moved stuff over, and one of the last things we moved was a book, and it was a Harlequin romance book. And I can't remember, I think I picked the book, and I looked at it, and some of the pages were dog-eared. And so I said to Claude, when I had an opportunity, I said, Claude, why are these pages dog-eared? He said, well, Elka, when she comes across a particularly interesting love passage, will dog-ear them, and then hand me the book, and I'm supposed to read it through. And you can take it from there. I started teaching with Claude in 1989, and as a single teacher at that point, I was invited over to their place on 17th a couple times, and quickly realized how warm these people are. And over the years, I unfortunately never had the opportunity to teach with Elka. But I was fortunate in the secondary school to teach many of the students that Elka had a profound impact on. Rashmi mentioned the Boxing Day party, and that's something we always look forward to because, the quality of the person can be measured by the quality of their friends and the quality of their family. And people that I saw come here, many of them are here tonight, many of these students. And, some are missing tragically and for other circumstances. Vera was mentioned earlier. I think of Gregor, who is often here as well. We have the Vanders Wands, and we have Joe Newsy, and the Newsy girls here as well. It really spoke to just how important Claude and Elka, both of them, were to these people. And it was an event we always look forward to because these are wonderful people. But again, it speaks to who Claude and Elka are. You know, Elka was an incredible woman. But, you know, she married a good man too. I look at their son and I think, you know, it's pretty obvious that their total dedication as parents was to raising a quality young man that Nolan is. And I congratulate Nolan again on being a new father. And I have every confidence, a little bit off track here, that Anna and Nolan will be the focused, dedicated, loving parents that Elka and Claude were. So anyways, thank you, Claude.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you to all these former students here and your parents. And anyways, I'm glad I can be here to share this moment with you guys.
One quick, like, off of Brian's saying, like, how valuable. Another thing that Mom gave me off of that, like, I grew up before the internet, before any availability of information outside of this house, right? So those dog-eared pages, like, were very. I didn't have anything else. She would, I don't know unintentionally or not, but she would put those into the outhouses.
And the second cabin, they're all lined up in those books. I had returning guests from the Dutch, I think, that brought back somebody. And the first thing they did, they opened the door and they pointed it down and they said, guess what? If you want to read Harlequin, there's those bent over corners on all the sex parts. You don't have to waste your time reading the whole book. And these people laughed their heads off. The Chinese people that had to read English. But we can't know English, no English.
Sorry. Very related story. Mom was already, I think it was like 2 years after the fall, like already a bit of Alzheimer's there. She came home from a trip to Plamondon, I think, and had this incessant thought in her head that she hid something in the house somewhere in the pillowcase, and she had to find it. Like, the valuables. Before she left, she didn't want thieves coming in stealing it, so she put the valuables in the pillowcase. And usually, like, this blows over after a little while, but this was incessant. Day after day, she had to find the valuables in the pillowcase. And Dad finally obliged her and said, okay, we'll look for them. And he's looking everywhere, goes on, doesn't find them. The next day, she's still insisting. So Dad tears apart the bedroom, and eventually on top shelf above the wardrobe, he feels a pillowcase. It's like, oh, thank God.
Queen's necklace.
Oh, the Queen's necklace. The necklace that she got from the Queen in Longworth is what she thought what she said she hid in the pillowcase, the valuables. Dad pulls it down. It's like, this is a lot heavier than a necklace. This is not a necklace in here. He dumps it onto the bed, and it's vibrators and dildos. And Mom just doesn't lose the pace. It's like, oh, I need to wash those. And goes to the bathroom and washes them off.
You're a brave boy. I just forgot it because it wasn't pretty.
It was in a pillowcase and it was valuable, and she's not letting it go.
No, I don't know if she was using it. I didn't think this story would be.
That'll be a tough story to talk about.
You can do it.
I don't have one memory in particular, but I spent a significant portion of my childhood here, and it was a bit of a second home away from home. So, like so many of the other stories, like introduction to KD and Wieners, which was never available at my house. Or
What have you done?
as I wasn't actually an ESL student. I had my mom is Caucasian, and I grew up speaking English, so I was never part of ESL. But the bus arrived at school at 8:00 in the morning, which is when the rest of the ESL kids were in, and she always brought me inside because it was cold outside, or all my friends were inside, and that's where, yeah, I made my best friends in that class. Also, like Brian was saying, the expectations that she set somehow were always very high for all of her students, and I don't think I was in there often enough because I wasn't as high achieving as Jimmy and Gregor and Burl, but some of it rubbed off. I today just say it's immigrant work ethic, and that's where she got it, and all my friends got it. But I think most of the stuff has been touched on that is, yeah, really relatable. Like when I started hockey, I started a few years after everybody else and cried for the first 3 practices and didn't want to do it, but she made Nolan put on his hockey gear and come out and skate with me and teach me how to skate. I learned how to ride a bike here.
And play Lego.
and hours of Lego. Yeah. So I just like to say thank you.
Okay, so you'll go, and then I'm gonna ask you to.
Yep, I'm going to. Yep. Okay. So, quite a few years ago, when Alka was still going strong, she told me that she wanted me to give the eulogy when she died. But she actually didn't tell Claude that, so she was surprised. He was surprised.
Very surprised. She just told me a few days ago.
He was surprised to hear that, but I took her very seriously. And I have a few pages here. I mean, a lot of these things, you know, they've been said before, but I may shorten it a bit. But so I beg the indulgence of everyone here because I want to do justice to Alka's faith in me. Sharon had told me earlier her Alka's little self-reflection. You know, I used to be this big, and now I'm this big. And I'm talking about the Alka that was this big. Most of the time, I'm talking about the Alka that was this big because the first time I met her, I think it was 1986 when you guys moved to Valemount.
86, 87, yeah.
Yeah, 86, and Nolan was still drinking a bottle and on her
3
lap.
years old, I drink a bottle.
Oh, you were. You would be on her lap.
Really?
And, yeah,
They didn't tell me
and
that.
yeah, and
He was 4 years
old. He wasn't quite 4, I think. I think in the fall. And but the phrase "larger than life," that was Alka. And over the years, as our friendship developed, I always wondered how she could excuse my shortcomings, because so many of the areas where Alka excelled, I was very short. And she was passionate about these things, and yet she somehow would overlook my inadequacies. Alka was brilliant, she was complex, and she was contradictory. Many people have mentioned Alka's organizing ability. So that's one of the abilities that I don't have. If I'm heading out on a trip and I've got my gas tank's full and I've got a toothbrush, I'm congratulating myself on how well prepared I was. Alka was prepared for medical emergency. I mean, Jan's told us, every eventuality she was prepared for. Blizzards, heat domes, flat tires, famine, floods. She was prepared for everything. Her organization, I mean, you only need to look around the house, and I think these shelves have been thinned down a bit lately.
Like about 3,000 books.
Yeah. But
But she did it with me, and she was okay to do it. Yeah.
just the organization that it takes to have so much stuff and to know where it is and to find it, completely beyond me. When she planned the house, I remember when Claude had actually got part of the cabin, put these two little cabins together. That's one of the cabins out here. One of them had come from my parents' place, and she was figuring out. She had beds, I'm pretty sure, for 10 people in these two tiny cabins. Every square inch was accounted for. She had planned out every square inch. I mean, you could go on and on with Alka's organizational skills. She had a prodigious memory. Again, I'm in an argument with Alka. I was always short on facts, keywords. So I didn't have a hope for an argument. However, it was a good thing because listening wasn't really Alka's long suit.
You are right.
Yeah, Alka loved Canada. She loved Valemount. She loved Canada. She loved the North. And she loved the romance of the North. In later, I think it was Claude and Alka's last big trip together. They went
Yukon.
up
Yukon.
to the Yukon, and it was in a time when Alka she had been in this long struggle with alcohol, and it was a time when she had a bit of the upper hand in this struggle. So she wasn't drinking on the whole trip. She told me before she left she was not going to drink. But she made an exception in Dawson City because they went to the Sourdough Saloon, I think it was called. And there was a tradition at the Sourdough Saloon that you could, they had do it was called the sourdough cocktail. So it was a toe supposedly amputated after frostbite that was kept in a jar of whiskey, and the thing was you can drink it fast, you can drink it slow, but the lips have got to touch the toe. She was very, very pleased that
And you
she
have to
had.
choose vodka or whiskey and drink it, yeah.
Yeah, she had done
I've got a nice slide on that.
the
I've got a beautiful, she's so proud of her certificate, 60,000 some people certificate, she beams away. I let her do it, I didn't do it, I wanted her to get all the information. Okay, sorry.
Alka was a gift giver, and this was another area where I'm just sadly lacking. Every Christmas is a pain for me because I just can't think of gifts. I'm really lousy at it. Alka gave me, I can't tell you how many gifts Alka gave me. She almost always gave me a Christmas gift, and it wasn't because we didn't exchange gifts. She gave me gifts. Often it was a book. I was looking through my bookshelves the other day, just astounded at the number of books Alka gave me. And they were often a kind of teaching. They were often about the North, about Canada, about all her loves. You know, they would come out of in these books. She was a bibliophile. Books on gardening. Oh, she gave me a book on household organization. And I read the whole thing, but sadly it didn't take. So, I passed it on.
I'll tell her that.
And Alka she was a teacher. She was a teacher in everything she did. One time, it would have been probably around the late 90s or around 2000, Seiji and I were clearing land, and I was having this conversation with her about how big's an acre. You know, she was wondering how many acres we were doing and how big's an acre. And I don't really know. So the next time I came to visit, Elka had this for me. So this is, I don't know if Elka had internet. We certainly didn't have internet at that time. But she had this for me. It is all, how all the measurements, where they came from, what they are in German, what they were in French, what they, all the names through the Middle Ages, where a rod was it was the length of an ox stick. What do you call it? It's very interesting, and I've kept it and I've referred to it.
I didn't keep one.
And it's that. It was like one little question, and you just get this whole.
Very true. Very, very,
Yeah.
very true.
And so the English as a second language. That was actually the letter you read was from Seiji's cousin and his wife, and they had visited us one summer, and they had come over for English lessons while they were visiting us. And so the English, this included a photography session, with a photo session with them dressed in these furs that Claude and Elka had brought down from the Arctic when they were there. These authentic furs that they stored in a freezer, and it was in the middle of the summer. They got all dressed up in these furs and had their photograph taken. It was a big deal. It was a huge deal for them, and that was just when she would go over and beyond. So because our Elka was so larger than life, I was often trying to understand what drove her, and I think that Elka was both formed and informed by the immigrant experience, and she was an immigrant from Germany after the Second World War, and I think that so she carried this hunger to belong at the same time as this horrendous authenticity that Sharon referred to, but just this hunger to belong, and she recognized, how many immigrants to Canada or newcomers to Valemount have eaten at her table and been introduced to, people that she thought they would benefit from or that they should know. And I think that immigrants of Valemount, whether they were just from somewhere else in Canada, but more likely someone from some other part of the world, benefited so just received her largesse, her gumboots. I want to say some random things that I loved about Elka.
Yeah, good.
Gumboots. So for Elka,
Summertime. 30
gumboots
above.
were the most versatile and appropriate footwear ever invented. She could go to town dressed up pretty nicely for some affair with her gumboots, and Claude wincing the whole time.
But 30 above.
Just wincing. It wasn't just the 30 above. I think he thought they might not have been appropriate. And she would also use those to take her visitors down through the swamp and show them the marvels of the moss-covered sinkholes. And here's a question. How many of you know someone who in their late 60s hiked from Berg Lake down with a broken toe in gumboots the whole way? That was up.
And we did not know it. She didn't tell us this. She was so much wanting to go on this trip and so on, and no one didn't know us and so on. at the very end, we're going on the helicopter up and then back down, and we noticed, and then she tells us, right, Nolan, that, and then, can't, you gotta take me now, can't refuse, I'm home. So we went.
Alka had a rare appreciation for the antics of prepubescent boys. And I think this is another value that she brought forward from the 50s, along with her collection of every episode of the Little Rascals. And, you know, where some, often the antics of prepubescent boys don't fly very well in school. And yet she had a way of just enjoying them. And not being, you know, she wasn't worried that they were going to be future delinquents because of these antics. But this is the paradox of Alka, that she could put up with these kind of things, even encourage them, I think, at times, all the time, knowing exactly where every one of them was. You know, like that was an area where we differed greatly. I was completely negligent with my kids. It's because I often didn't know where they were, what they were doing. Alka had, she was always knew exactly where they were, and she was never ever negligent. When I look around this whole place, the establishment of Teepee Meadows, I see it as a tribute to both Claude and Alka. I never imagined when they moved here with the sand and the jack pines that one day there would be you know, gardens and orchards and rose bush
Fences.
yeah, fences, and these little cabins, collection of cabins, the livestock, the memorabilia. And they managed to express so many of their values for the old, the eccentric, the forgotten, in the building of their home. Those of us who were lucky enough to attend Nolan and Anna's Valemount wedding, they had two weddings, but the Valemount wedding, will remember the sunflowers and the coal oil lamps at every table. Yeah, coal oil lamps at every table, and the collection of friends old and new. Yeah, she had invited so many old friends. They remained friends all those years. And just as anyone who's ever cooperated with a spouse or a friend on a project that you were both passionate about, imagine how many arguments they must have had building this place.
Shrinking it, changing plans. Alka drew all the plans out. And then I argued with the engineer when it came time to build and change stuff and so on. And but she knew what furniture was going to be in here, and she had every inch of space. And I guess building a suite downstairs was a good idea because to help pay the mortgage. So if we build a suite, we can help pay the mortgage. Let's have a suite downstairs, and it was a great idea. But now I've turned her office into a second suite for a big pipeline of money.
The funny thing was when Claude would go somewhere, he'd be gone for a couple of days. Alka, there'd be this flurry of activity because Alka was going to get done the project that Claude didn't like.
building dog fences, buying me snowblowers, and everything else.
And I often wondered what, when Claude was going, like, what am I going to come home to? Because
So true, so true.
And as amazing as this place is, their finest work together, and that which inspires my profound respect, they raised no one. And I think that you know, they put all their eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Yeah, of course.
And I think Nolan's probably exceeded even their expectations and dreams. And perhaps at times it's actually hard to be the adored and the only adored. Might be a bit of a burden sometime,
Well, it works both ways though.
but here we are. In September, when Alka had gone to McBride Hospital so that Claude could have a bit of a break and go and visit Nolan, he'd only been gone a few days, and Claude phoned me from the airport in Vancouver to say that he was on his way home because the hospital had phoned and Alka was deteriorating quickly. So I went over to McBride to spend a bit of time with Alka. And it's a privilege to be with a person when they're dying. And I'm very thankful that Claude had phoned me, and I'm very thankful for that privilege of being with Alka in her last hours. She was not very big at all by this time. Alka was very little by this time. And dying's actually hard work. It reminds me of birthing, actually. It has a lot in common with giving birth. And the person it takes a lot of focus. I watched my mom die, and it's like they are very focused. And ironically, the work is to let go. It's a funny thing. And but to be a part of that is to be a part of the mystery at a birth of life emerging into the open and our inevitable demise. And so there's something that's very holy about it. And as a person, as an accompany, a friend who's there, or a spouse in birth, you can't do a whole lot. You can't do it for them. But so being present becomes what it's all about. And so when I got to McBride, Alka was on a respirator, and she was only kind of taking sporadic gasps. She wasn't breathing regularly. Her eyes looked, she didn't blink. She didn't blink at all. She didn't seem to be seeing anything. And so I sat with her. I sang a little bit quietly because Alka had always loved music. And I sang, it was kind of the song that Claude probably couldn't bear. It was Jerusalem Maria, plena de graça. It's actually the rosary in French, in an old medieval tune. I sang that to her. I sang her other old kind of quiet songs. So I just sat with her a long time. And when I left and I got home, I checked and Claude wasn't home yet, so I phoned him and he was en route. And I said, Claude, I think you better go straight to McBride because I don't think she's gonna make the night. So Claude did. He went straight to McBride, and Alka did make the night. She was still alive the next day, and the next afternoon when Nolan phoned to say that she had just died, he said that his dad had timed it very well because he FaceTimed Nolan so that Nolan was able to tell her he loved her and to say goodbye to her. And I thought it might have been good timing, but I think Alka might not have been able to leave, to finally let go without saying goodbye to So, Alka, I hope that the afterlife is more than you ever hoped for. And it's funny, all the things that we talked about together, we never speculated about the afterlife. Yeah, I don't know what she thought, what she hoped for, but I hope that she feels loved, that she is loved, that she feels like she belongs, and that her soul is at rest.
Yeah, every second Sunday, Catherine and Seiji came to sing and play music for Alka, and then Gordon and Annie played every other Sunday. So the last 3 or 4 months it was really nice. Okay, Nolan, and then
My turn now.
yeah, and then
Yeah. So, my theme here is my son's a big thing on my mind now, and that's the focus that puts on my parents having that child now is intense. And am I speaking loud enough? Yeah. The last few days putting together that slideshow and looking at literally thousands of photos. Most of them of mom and dad playing with me and caring for me, and seeing mom holding a bottle to me. It's just pretty intense. And the gratitude I feel, that what came into focus even more clearly when we have this child now, and especially because of Anna's very long, difficult labor, and the number of friends we had collecting together, unknown to us, just how our community came together behind us, and coming home. I mean, somebody had taken the compost out in the garbage and cleaned our kitchen and stocked the freezer, and every day meals were coming in. People were picking up dishes. There was like this whole train organized behind the scenes, allowing us to have that time together. And thinking that wouldn't happen without the way my parents raised me and what mom did. And now that I'm getting phone calls asking, hey, what's happening at your place? Are you going to have a party again soon? We haven't seen each other in a while. Telling me that the community kind of shut down. The friend group has stopped seeing each other when we're not hosting. And like, we wouldn't have those people in our lives. Like, we love that community and we need it so acutely. And we realize how much we need it now. And we wouldn't have it if mom wasn't the person she was. Like, if she didn't. And I just still remember her. She thought out loud to me and dad, and she came home from church and said there was somebody new sitting on some pew that she didn't know, and she would go into forensic research mode and like she'd figure out who they were and find a phone number, and she would bring them over. And then she thought out loud, well, who should they meet? Well, maybe they'll be able to be friends with so-and-so because they're from the same country, or so-and-so lives close to them. So she would invite all the people over and give them the tour. And if I didn't have that reason, if I didn't think it was normal to fill my house, I mean, I have a 700 square foot house with a little living room and kitchen, but we fill it like mom did. And because of that, over the last 5 years, like we have meals in our fridge for weeks because of that. So thanks, mom and dad, for that. And the authenticity people spoke about. Much to Anna's distress at some points, I'm a little too authentic, I think, sometimes. But she has work friends over for dinner, and she knows I just speak the way I speak all the time, and sometimes she doesn't like that. But I think she gave me some of that authenticity, and I saw her live that. I saw her wear gumboots whenever she wanted to and not give a shit about what people thought about that. And I think that's a powerful thing to give to a young child growing up. And now, I mean, what breaks me down looking at those photos is just a monumental task ahead of me. I don't know how I could possibly live up to that kind of parenting. Like, those are really big shoes to fill.
get a pair of gumboots.
Hey, you got it. You're pretty honest. Got you that time, Roland.
Sorry, those are some really big gumboots. So I hope we can live up to that, and I'm going to save those photos, and those are going to be inspiration to us as we go forward now. So thank you, Mom, for everything you gave to us. That's all I got on my mind right now.
Thank you, Roland. Okay, I'll keep mine quite short. I'm gonna read our wedding vows we wrote for each other, if I can. Starting with Malcolm. No, from me, I guess. Malcolm, I love you and wish to take you this day for my wife and companion. I will honor you for what you are now and for what we will become together. I will give you my trust, tears, and worries as long as we live. I look forward to all the wonderful gifts life has to offer, and I promise to support you in good times and in health, as well as through sickness and frustrations. May our love also extend beyond ourselves to those less fortunate, the needy, and the brokenhearted. Without reservation, I offer my fidelity and rejoice in gratitude that we have found each other. Claude, I give myself to you completely for the rest of my life as your wife, your lover, and your friend. I promise to share myself and all I have with you. With my body, it is you I worship. With my heart, it is you I love. I will always be honest with you and respect your unique individuality. I accept you as my husband to love and understand, to stay by your side in sickness and in health, in days of joy and in my sometimes depression, in poverty and in plenty, until death do us part by old age or by illness. That's it for it. Hey, I didn't cry. I did it. So this concludes the portion of the speeches.
Unless anybody else wants to
Yeah.
go that we skipped over. Anybody?
There was one memory that it just came to me.
Okay.
Just tells you what precious things would have been missed. I got a phone call one night. It was literally 8 p.m. September or late August, and it was getting dark. And it's Elka. Joe, did you know there's fireflies? Yeah, come see the fireflies. So drive out here. There are fireflies in this town. Did you know there's actually fireflies here?
Joe, she called us too.
Yeah. We're down there, and there's 30 people. I'm not kidding you. 30 people walking down their boardwalk down here, and we have the guru here. Where's Art Carson? Yeah, you were the authority of anything Natural Geographic in her life. And sure enough, Art confirms that they are in fact fireflies, and we do in fact have fireflies in the valley. But 30 people learned that we have fireflies in this valley, and 30 people actually drove here with 10 minutes notice at 8 p.m. to see fireflies, and like 10 of them, right? Like 10 fireflies. But I'll never see a firefly here and not think about that. Just the random, and the importance of that network to make that moment special, and the fact that there's 10 fireflies in Tegan Meadows is neat.
I think it was me who came running to the house. Fireflies, Alka. And then we.
Yeah, I literally thought she was. I said, no, we don't have fireflies here. Like,
And she had finger probably down.
probably, yeah.
So what Catherine showed us that book about measurements of the acres, and just another example of that. I came home from university one year. I casually strolled in, like getting off the bus, and I see a tree that she had planted. I'm like, whoa, my mom, nice larch. Like, no, it's a tamarack. I'm like, oh, same thing, right? She let it go. The next time I came home, a few months later, I had on the bed waiting for me this fold-out book of 2 sides with enough laminating to keep infinity afloat for a while. Each side was larch and one side was tamarack, right? So there is a page about needles with the needles laminated into the book. Then there's a page about cones, then the tip, then the root system, comparing them, showing that they're different. But then the last page, you fold it over, and it's a surprise. They can interbreed. Now there's large tamarack hybrids. But I still have that book, and that's kind of like her intensity of, I want to share, I want to teach, and if you give me the opportunity, I will just give as much as I can. Just love that.
Okay,
Music?
yeah, music time. So we're gonna.
What's happening? Should we take like a brief? People want to get drinks and bathrooms.
Yeah, well, okay.
Yeah.
By the time we just
Yeah.
sit up, give us 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes.